Okay, you guys. So first of all, I miss you. I hope y'all are doing well. Your assignment should have taken you to the page that my screen is on right now. Now, if you don't know how I got here, you should be on this section and it's going to say Martin Luther King Jr. article and it says click on this link. And that is what I clicked on to get here and it made me make a copy. So that's how I got there. So your assignment, it says you're going through the article below and you're highlighting each of the following things in a different color. Okay, so as you go through this article, what this means is you are looking for these 4 things. Think of it as like a scavenger hunt, okay? You do not have to read it through the entire time that you look through these things. You can skim, and every time you see something that you're supposed to be highlighting, you can stop and highlight it, okay? This will take you a good bit to get everything that you need to get. Think of it like a scavenger hunt. Like I said, you are looking for all of these things. You're trying to find as many examples of each of these things as you possibly can in this article, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain what you're looking for. I'm going to explain how to highlight, and then I'll do an example with you guys for the first paragraph, and then I'm going to let you guys do it on your own, okay? So you're looking for these 4 things. They're 4 different things. First thing you're looking for is numbers. This means any kind of numbers. So any dates, any numbers that are written out in number form, any numbers that are just like a word, like the word 1 or 2 or 3. Okay, anything that you see that is a number, you are highlighting that in yellow. Okay, so what I would do is if I'm reading this article and I already see a number. Okay, so I see this. How you highlight is you go up to this top toolbar and you click on the thing. It kind of looks like a marker. And you click on that and you're going to click your color, press highlight, and then you italicize whatever you are looking to highlight and it does it for you. Okay, so I've already done that. So once again, numbers in yellow. Next thing you're looking for, unknown words. Any words the author thinks you know, but you don't, okay? Anything that like you don't know what it means, or maybe it's like a vocabulary word and you don't understand it, or it's a piece of history and you don't know what it is, okay? Anything you don't know that the author assumes you did, you're highlighting that in green, okay? So say I'm skimming through this and I see Martin Luther King Jr. Well, I know who he is, Atlanta, Georgia, Baptist minister. Then I come across this word activist, and I may have heard it before, but I just don't really I'm not super familiar with it. I'm gonna highlight that as an unknown word. So remember, I'm doing this in green. So what I did is I grabbed my clicker, I highlighted it, go up to this marker looking thing, press it, and then I'm highlighting that in green. Okay. Now, absolute language. This one's a little hard to understand, okay? But absolute language is just like that extreme language. So it's going to be words like all or every single person or everyone, okay? So it's where it generalizes and groups people together, okay? So that absolute extreme language you're going to do in red, okay? I don't know if I see any in this first paragraph. Well, actually I do. So if I'm skimming this, and it's talking about how Martin Luther King was assassinated and continues to be remembered as one of the greatest African American leaders in history. I would call that absolute language, okay? It is pretty absolute, okay? There's not really much room for wiggle room there. So what I did was I highlighted that, went up to my marker, clicked on red, and highlighted it. Now, quotes, that's the last thing that you're looking for. This means anything in quotation marks you are highlighting in blue. So as I scroll, it's going to take me a while to find this, but I am going to commit to it because it's important that we know what quotation marks look like. Here's one. Okay, so as I'm skimming through this, notice I didn't read every single part of it. I'm scavenger hunting right now, but I see these quotation marks, okay? It's these 2 little, they look like apostrophes, but there's 2 of them. I am seeing that is in a quotation, so I'm going to highlight it green, okay? So once again, 4 things. Go through this article as many times as you can to find all of these things. You're looking for numbers, unknown words, absolute language, and quotes. Once you do that, then you will read it through one more time, okay? Now, I am going to read this article out loud to you. I'm going to give you guys a choice, Okay, if you want to highlight and scavenger hunt and you don't want to listen to me read the article, you can click off of this video. So you can press pause and scroll down on your Google form. If you would like to stick around as I read this article out loud to you, please keep watching, okay? Civil rights leaders, Martin Luther King Jr. Synopsis. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. A Baptist minister and civil rights activist, he had an enormous impact on race relations in the United States. Through his activism, he played a key role in ending the segregation of African American citizens and the creation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. King was assassinated in April 1968 and continues to be remembered as one of the greatest African American leaders in history. Early years and spiritual growth. Originally named Michael King Jr., Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929. He was the middle child of Michael King Sr. and Alberta Williams King. The King children grew up in a secure and loving environment. Martin Luther King Jr. entered school at age 5, skipped 2 grades in high school, and entered Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia at age 15 in 1944. He was a popular student, but he was unmotivated and floated through his first 2 years. In 1948, King attended the Crozer Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania. He graduated first in his class in 1951 after having been elected student body president. While working on his doctorate at Boston University, King met Coretta Scott, a singer and musician. They were married in June 1953 and had 4 children, Yolanda, Martin Luther King III, Dexter Scott, and Bernice. In 1954, King became pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church of Montgomery, Alabama. Bus Boycott and Southern Christian Leadership Conference. On December 1, 1955, 42-year-old Rosa Parks boarded a bus to go home from a day at work. She sat in the first row of the colored section in the middle of the bus. The bus driver demanded that Parks and several other African Americans give up their seats. 3 other African American passengers reluctantly gave up their places, but Parks remained seated. The driver asked her again to give up her seat, and again she refused. Parks was arrested and jailed. After Parks was arrested, King was chosen to lead a boycott of the Montgomery bus system, meaning no Black residents would ride the bus. The one-day bus boycott would eventually expand to 381 days of walking to work, harassment, violence, and intimidation for Montgomery's African American community. In early 1957, the city of Montgomery gave in and ended the law mandating segregated public transportation. In January 1957, Martin Luther King Jr. and more than 60 ministers and civil rights activists founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, to coordinate their civil rights efforts. In the South at that time, African Americans were prevented from voting in most places. The organization felt the best way to give African Americans a voice was to make sure they could vote. In February 1958, the SCLC began registering Black voters in the South. I Have a Dream. Through the late 1950s and early 1960s, King led various protests, including marches and demonstrations. In the spring of 1963, he organized a demonstration in downtown Birmingham, Alabama. City police turned dogs and fire hoses on entire families of demonstrators, including children. King was jailed along with many others. The event drew nationwide attention, but King was criticized for taking risks and endangering children. From his jail cell in Birmingham, King eloquently spelled out his theory of nonviolence. Nonviolent action seeks to create a crisis so that a community is forced to confront the issue and deal with it. On August 28, 1963, the historic March on Washington drew more than 200,000 people. It was here that King made his famous I Have a Dream speech, emphasizing his belief that someday all men could be brothers. This speech included the famous line, "I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation."
If you participated in Secret Santa, if you will, please make your way to the cafeteria with your final gift. Thank you.
Sorry, just like normal school, I get interrupted by the announcements. I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. King's protests strongly affected public opinion. All over the country, people began questioning the South's segregation, or Jim Crow laws, and the discriminatory treatment of African American citizens. This led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination in public places. That same year, King received the Nobel Peace Prize. Assassination and legacy. By 1968, King was becoming discouraged at the slow progress of civil rights in America and began to take up other causes as well. In Memphis, Tennessee, while standing on a balcony outside his room at the Lorraine Motel, Martin Luther King Jr. was killed by a sniper's bullet. The killing sparked riots and demonstrations in more than 100 cities across the country. In 1969, his killer, James Earl Ray, pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 99 years in prison. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life had an earth-shattering effect on race relations in the United States. Years after his death, he is the most widely known African American leader of his era. His life and work have been honored with a national holiday in his name. Schools and public buildings have been named after him, as well as a memorial in Washington, D.C. King was a complicated man, flawed, but still a visionary leader who was deeply committed to achieving social justice through nonviolent means. All right, there's the article. Remember, your assignment is looking for these 4 things. Go through as many times as you need and highlight. Your sheet should be filled with color by the end of this.